I never thought a bathroom could feel like a battlefield. The moment I stepped inside, everything shifted. My name is Adrian. I'm 42, and I've been married to Aloan for 12 years. 12 years of shared mornings, endless laundry, arguments about nothing, and quiet, invisible moments that somehow defined us. I thought I knew my home, my life, my marriage. But that afternoon shattered every illusion. I opened the door slowly, not because I expected anything, but because something felt off. The light flickered faintly from the frosted window, the hum of the heater filling the silence. And then I saw her, Aloan, pale, gripping her phone so tightly that her knuckles turned white, her lips trembling. She dropped it instantly, and it hit the tile with a sharp crack. My heart skipped. She looked at me, eyes wide, shock and fear combined, and yelled my name in a way I had never heard before. It wasn't anger, it wasn't surprise. It was a sound that made my chest tighten, the kind that pierces deep into your bones. "What the hell are you doing in here?" she spat, voice sharp, trembling. I froze. For a second, I wondered if this was real, if somehow I had walked into a nightmare. I had come into the bathroom to grab a towel, nothing more, but the way she reacted, it felt like I had walked into a secret world I had no right to witness. And that's when I saw it. On the counter, scattered across the edge, a collection of receipts, tiny envelopes, and a small, leather-bound notebook I had never seen before. The handwriting inside was meticulous, neat, obsessive even. And the names, every single name, stung like a punch I didn't see coming. Names I didn't recognize, numbers, addresses, little notes about meetings, dinners, coffee dates. I realized instantly, this wasn't a notebook for work. This was a ledger, a record, a map of secrets. I didn't react immediately. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I stood there, letting the silence hang like a heavy curtain between us. Aloan was staring at me, chest heaving, a mixture of guilt and defiance in her eyes. "Adrian," she started, but I held up a hand. Not because I wanted her to stop talking, but because I needed the weight of this moment to sink in, every detail, every piece of evidence laid bare before me. I had spent 12 years trying to understand her, to navigate the shifts in our relationship, the quiet rejections, the late nights where she seemed miles away even when she was in the same house. And now, in a single heartbeat, every doubt, every small suspicion I had ever ignored, crystallized into something undeniable. I picked up the notebook slowly, as if touching it too quickly would shatter the fragile calm I was clinging to. Page after page, the entries revealed a life I had never been invited into, a life that existed parallel to ours. And the contrast was sharp. The smiles she gave me, the dinners we shared, the vacations we planned, it all suddenly felt hollow, rehearsed, like a facade carefully maintained while another reality unfolded behind closed doors. And yet, what struck me most was not anger, not betrayal, but a profound, hollow sadness. Because I realized I had loved her fully, unconditionally, and in return, she had offered only a curated version of herself, leaving the rest locked away in secrecy. I remember setting the notebook down carefully, almost reverently, and looking at her. "Aloan," I said quietly, deliberately. The calmness in my voice was intentional. It was not resignation, nor was it submission. It was clarity, the kind that comes when you've accepted a truth that cannot be ignored. She flinched at my tone, the sharp contrast to the storm that had preceded it. "We need to talk," I continued, my words steady, controlled. "Not now, not later. Right here, right now. I need to understand." Her eyes filled with tears, and for a moment, I almost believed she might crumble, that she might finally confess, apologize, beg for understanding. But she didn't. Instead, she crossed her arms, defensive, a wall of stone I had tried for years to chip away at slowly. "There's nothing to talk about," she whispered, but I saw the tremor in her voice, the tiny cracks she couldn't hide. I thought about walking away. I really did. But I had spent years trying to ignore the small betrayals, the emotional absences, the silent treatments that made my own home feel alien. And now, the evidence was literal, tangible, undeniable. I wanted answers. I needed truth. I wanted her to look me in the eyes and recognize what she had done, not with an excuse or a defense, but with honesty. So I asked the questions I had rehearsed for nights, questions that cut through the politeness, the small talk, the routines. Who are these people? I said, holding up the notebook. Why all these entries? Are these friends? Work contacts? Or is this something else? My voice remained calm, steady, like the surface of a lake before a storm. I wasn't shouting, wasn't panicking. I was simply stating what was evident. Facts. Truths. And then it happened. She broke, not in a dramatic, cinematic way, but subtly, almost imperceptibly at first. Her shoulders slumped, her eyes darted away, then back. The first word she whispered was, "I," and it trailed into silence. She tried to regain control, but the tension in the room had shifted irreversibly. For the first time in years, I saw her not as my wife, but as someone I had known only partially, someone whose choices had remained hidden until now. I didn't speak immediately. I didn't fill the silence with anger or recrimination. I simply observed, absorbing the scene, understanding the contrast between the life we had and the one she had led. And in that quiet, I felt something I hadn't in a long time: clarity. Not relief, not joy, but a clear, sharp understanding of what had been and what must now be. I realized that staying silent, pretending ignorance, hoping for things to fix themselves, had been my choice for years. Now, the choice was hers, or rather, the reality she created had made the choice for both of us. After what felt like an eternity in those silent seconds, I spoke again. "Adrian," she said weakly, mispronouncing my name in panic. "I can explain." I shook my head slowly. "No," I said, still calm. "Not yet. Not until you can be honest. Not until you can tell me everything without fear or hesitation. Right now, we both need to face this." My voice didn't waver. It wasn't cold for the sake of cruelty. It was cold with clarity, the kind that comes from years of being ignored, pushed aside, and dismissed. The kind that forces truth into the open, whether anyone wants it or not. I set the notebook back on the counter and stepped back, giving her space. Her breathing was erratic, her lips quivering. I could see every emotion flicker across her face. Fear, guilt, shame, perhaps even regret. But I didn't rush her. I didn't force the confession. I simply stood, calm, composed, and waiting. In that moment, I realized something profound. This wasn't just about betrayal, secrecy, or deceit. It was about recognition. Recognition that a life shared requires transparency, trust, and presence. And when one partner hides behind walls, it is the other who is left navigating shadows, constantly guessing, constantly doubting, constantly questioning their own worth. Hours passed, though I didn't measure them. Time became irrelevant. What mattered was the shift, the subtle, almost imperceptible fracture in the carefully constructed facade she had maintained. Eventually, she sank to the floor, trembling, unable to meet my gaze. And in that moment, I didn't feel triumph or victory. I felt a quiet, resolute understanding that the life we had built on assumptions, omissions, and secrecy was no longer sustainable. I was done pretending, done hoping, done negotiating with shadows. I walked out of that bathroom with a strange sense of liberation. Not because I had uncovered her secrets, not because I had the power to confront her, but because clarity, once it arrives, carries its own kind of peace. I didn't yell. I didn't slam doors. I didn't threaten. I simply stepped into the space that had always been mine, now seeing it with new eyes, knowing that the choices made in that room that afternoon had irrevocably altered the course of our lives. And somewhere in that quiet, amidst the shards of trust and the remnants of what once was, I felt the sharp edge of freedom and the weight of inevitable change.